All right, so kicking off session 2, our first speaker will be Danning Swede. Danning is the research director at Pantera Capital.
Thanks for the stage. Thanks for coming to the talk. So this talk will be a compilation of a bunch of data analysis that we observed on the current biggest prediction markets platform, and to provide a bunch of insights and also spark more questions and discussions. So the title is Flash Boys or Superforecasters. I will get to that in a minute. But first of all, what is a prediction market? A prediction market is a binary contract. Currently, it's legally regulated. If you acquire a DCM license, you can operate a prediction market in the US as well. The biggest venue is Kalshi and Polymarket US. Obviously, Polymarket started internationally to be able to bet outside of US, and they're also sending their settlement of the Polymarket International volume into one of the blockchain, Polygon. But one thing to note here is that the CFTC regulated version of prediction markets are not on-chain. So a lot of this analysis here is a combination of on-chain data and off-chain data. For the user part, though, we can only basically analyze the on-chain part. But yeah, back to the definition. When you bet on Polymarket or any prediction market, you're trying to predict the outcome of an event. And the event can be about the politics, if the US president gonna do this or that, or it can be pretty financial. For example, if you're betting on the crypto price, say Bitcoin price going up or down in the next 5 minutes, 15 minutes. It can be very entertainment related, like if Taylor Swift gonna have her wedding, this or that. But yeah, a lot of the big movements are happening around the prediction markets sector. Robinhood, as one of the de facto fintech app, just launched their own prediction markets called Rothera. And also, when we talk about prediction market, also umbrella, the bigger, group of sports betting, which historically exists in our daily lives already. But so the first thing I want to note here is that prediction market is a venue of many different markets. So when you look at the breakdown of all kinds of volume on Kalshi or Polymarket, you would notice that, for example, Kalshi is pretty dominated by sports betting related things. But Polymarket had a very diverse group of type of events, including crypto events, including not just the price, but also say if MicroStrategy will do this or that about Bitcoin or so, and also world and geopolitics and many things else. This is a more timeline kind of view. You can see that Polymarket had a diversity of topics. Up until recent, they've been also growing sports volume, but Kalshi has been super dominated by sports. This trend has been slightly shifting. So one of the major on the rise kind of market category is crypto markets. Since the beginning of this year, Polymarket started first gaining all this volume for people to bet on the price trend in 5 minutes, 15 minutes, an hour or so. But Kalshi's trend has just been growing like crazy right now. The other trend is that Polymarket US now started operating since the end of last year, and their volume has been also growing up to now half of Polymarket International. So it's been pretty growing with a good trajectory. So what can we study from all these markets live? Many things that are interesting. So first of all, why we already acknowledge that different type of markets may aggregate different type of information and different type of behaviors for user to bet on the outcome. First thing is we can look at how does the volume arrive along with the information arrival. So here's one preliminary analysis I looked at for categorizing sports markets versus news markets. When you look at the volume across the whole market duration and normalize the total duration, you can see that for sports bets, a lot of these are already putting the bets in early on, even before the game starts. During the game, there might be a lot more volatility based on the real-time events coming in from the game court. But compared to news market, they already have more than half of the volume happened before half of the time already. So if you look at also the wallets-based activity, you can see that if we measure the volume-weighted median entry position for different markets by cohort of the wallets, you can see sports, crypto are overall also arriving pretty much late in terms of the user behavior. Weather market is the one that's pretty much priced in early on. Cultural is kind of in the middle. The other thing we can look at for markets would be like measuring how accurate they are, because people are betting on or predicting an outcome there. So you can basically, using this standard approach that has existed for quite a long time in literature called Breyer score, basically looking at the price points and the deviation aggregated across compared to the final results of 0 or 1. And so to aggregate across different type of, markets. But one thing to note here, as we already mentioned, is that you can't just simply say Polymarket is more accurate than Cauchy, because that is not considering the fact that they're hosting different type markets. And it needs to be market-based or category-based. So you may say like Polymarket is more accurate than Cauchy on a specific topic like science here. But Cauchy might be better on sports compared to many other platforms. Another thing we can learn from these data are basically when do people's belief disagree the most? This is a very interesting observation. Another speaker, Siamak, will give a more detailed talk on this. But for example, here there is a chart looking at one of the sports market. One of the game happened between Chicago and Philadelphia. And you can see like the price point of Cauchy and Polymarket basically fluctuates very tightly against each other according to the real-time events that's coming in from the court. So if one of the player had a touchdown and scored a really big score, the price may stabilize around a favoring point. But over time, if you look at like one of the team has been holding the ball for quite a long time, the price first gonna like goes up towards that team. But if it goes for a longer time, people will lose belief that this team gonna score actually, and it will price like deviates down. But when looking at the volatility of the price is also very interesting. You can see that when the price points are near the center, so people are the most not sure about if either of the team gonna win, the price actually fluctuates a lot more. And when it nears the end and the price is going to one of the answer, either 1 or 0, the volatility goes lower. So we did a kind of like deep dive into all the wallets on chain, specifically on the Polymarket's data, simply because they're on chain, and so we can basically attribute each wallet's behavior, assuming this is like user. But of course, caveat is that one wallet may not represent one user may have multiple wallets. So yeah. But one headline number here to show is that basically, if you account by the number of wallets count, we do see still like 89% of the wallets are kind of like a retail behavior. How do we define retail? We kind of based on a set of heuristics to categorize them into 3 cohorts. So if this wallet is trading across 1,000 different type markets, we are believing that this is more like a bot's behavior. If this wallet is trading big volume and is only trading on specific type of markets, this is more likely a professional traders. And we also categorize based on often they're placing the same exact number sides of the bet. If they're always placing the exact same fixed number, the bets, we believe it's also more like bot-like behavior. So based on this categorization, we see that like even though there's 89% of wallets act like behavior as a retail, the bots wallets are placing 60 to 66% of the volume, and the wallets are like who are retail are like basically making up much less volume here. And the bots are filling way more fills as well. So I think here there's a story to tell here, which is there's this famous book called Superforecasters about prediction markets. People traditionally existing in like sports betting or like prediction market type business, they will find random people who are normies, maybe living in like an unknown place who just specialize on a specific topic. These are like the very, maybe like you can say like the super retail who have some intel and like niche knowledge about a certain topic. And we also know the other book called Flash Boys, which basically sparked the whole MEV discussion in this workshop. But we also see bots are coming into prediction markets. So I'm kind of like basically coming back to the topic, the title is that there are Superforecasters, there's also Flash Boys, both existing in prediction markets right now. You can also kind of see like a more detailed breakdown across different type of markets. Obviously, the bots favor certain type of markets, for example, like sports and crypto. Naturally, because crypto market betting is very similar set of data sources, similar type of infra that you can set up already from the MEV bots who are already trading arbitrages on centralized exchange versus DEX exchanges. And sports as well, you kind of have to acquire certain very low latency information from like certain data API as well. And the rest of the category are a lot more like casual and consumer alike. We also accounted the P&L based on their bets and position and the outcome of their position to see who are making money and who are losing money, taking a bunch of methodology from some paper from Ridge actually. So we can kind of see like the bots alike that is under our categorization, the set of the heuristics are earning cumulatively 100 mil in profits while the retailers are losing 74 mil. So it's kind of like a money transfer, between these two type of cohorts. Very classic in gambling casinos. So so basically we can, categorize and understand. We also can track over time their life journey on the platform. So we can basically see how, across different type of market category, how sticky are these people on the platform. You can basically track if they're coming back to trade again after this month, and basically categorize like the retention rate. And we see actually like the overall retention rate is like 57%, which is pretty high. And sports and world geopolitics are the highest retention category of the markets. Crypto and finance and culture actually have a lower retention. It's also to caveat that like it's likely the category with more bots are being rotated out with new wallets over time. So we might see like a lower retention. So here's a very interesting case study here. Where is the flash boys existing on prediction markets? This is a study we recently did, specifically looking at the crypto markets. Also to kudos, we also took a methodology framework from Rage's paper released around the same time. So feel free to check it out after to read the full paper to understand the full methodology. But basically, here's a diagram. To explain you what's happening. So we mentioned earlier that now on Kalshi and Polymarket, there are both of this type of markets allow you to betting on the price trend in 5 minutes, 15 minutes, 1 hour, or 4 hours. Only Polymarket has a 5 minutes market. Kalshi simply doesn't have 15 minutes, doesn't have 5-minute markets. The shortest is 15. And what people are doing seems like, based on data evidence, is that a lot of time, Bitcoin price may be pretty flat, like it doesn't really move much. And that's likely the most, vulnerable type of market condition that you can manipulate here. So if you bet on a big position at the start of the market and say Bitcoin price is gonna go up, and you just wait until the end and move the price from the oracle source, for example, like Binance, then simply you can change or basically alter the results of the market. And this kind of has been caught with evidence using the data analysis we have done, both in our study and also the paper. You can pretty much see that for different type of market condition. So in the case of Bitcoin is not moving much, we call them a still even cycle. In the case of Bitcoin is very volatile and the price already deviated quite largely from the original price, we call it already decided a market. For the case of the Bitcoin price being flat, the traded volume on Binance at the exact Polymarket market close is 12 times compared to a normal cycle. And there's more data set actually from Rager's paper to show that this pattern only happened after Polymarket introduced the 5 minutes market and didn't exist before. So what will be the solution for this type of market manipulation? I think like from the first principle, simply both the paper and our article was agreeing on that you have to increase the cost of manipulation. So naturally, one thing we observe from the data pattern is that when the market duration is longer, 15 minutes, 1 hour, or 4 hours, there is much less evidence of the manipulation. And it's simply because this is a histogram of how much the price have moved away from the beginning point, simply because the longer time cycle will make the price deviate more. So one simple solution would be just like not have 5 minutes market. You can also maybe like hide the way how you sample the Oracle source. So just don't simply take only one time point of the midpoint price. Instead, sample across maybe a longer duration or add some like other aggregated source as well. So it's a very interesting like MEV situation happening on prediction markets. A few other things to just to quickly mention is we also are very interested in understanding in general just how the market behave based on different type of design choice. So back to this top chart where we were talking about looking at like the sports market in one of the poly market example. We did a study to look at how liquidity quality looked like across Cauchy and poly market. And so what we found out was that if you zoom in close enough, you can see that these 2 time series, the Cauchy price always moves faster than poly market. And this is a very early data sample, I believe from end of last year or so. And at the same time, you can also see Cauchy's price moves more violently compared to poly market. So poly market's like price has less of a volatility compared to Cauchy. And what we found out is, what we realized is that on poly market, they've been having this rule saying that whoever who is a retail coming to the front end, setting a taker order, your order going to be delayed for 3 seconds to actually being settled. This is a protection for market makers who is providing liquidity. And with this protection, basically market makers are safe to assume that they will not be chosen against like adversarial selection who are arbitrage bots really good at like gaming with the last minute like a strategy, and they can quote tighter. So that is like one assumption we come to why this liquidity behaves this way, potentially because of this. But I believe Cauchy now also have some kind of speed bump design like this. Another interesting thing would be like we were comparing the market volume between poly market and Cauchy, and Cauchy's chart has been going up, just up only, and the poly market chart were interesting. So people are betting on the price trend of different crypto assets, and the breakdown looks like most of them are Bitcoin price, but you do see that like they peaked around March at the highest point, but it went down now. And then we digged into their basically logs of how the market fee has changed overall. They introduced the maker rebates around February. And you can see that the volume has been going up afterwards, and then kind of like trended down after they finished they updated a rule of the rebate programs. So pretty much, again, like it's not really a strict causal analysis here, but the assumption here is that incentive do also drive the volume. But the volume may not stick and is not sustainable because it's because of the incentive. But yeah, these are all kinds of interesting stuff we have seen, and happy to discuss more if anyone's also looking at prediction markets. I think that's it. Thank you. Yes.
Great talk, and thank you for the paper as well. Very interesting. Related question to the speed bumps. Have you found that in particular in markets where there's maybe politics or a sporting event or some kind of announcement that comes through, like let's say a free agency decision that comes through to pick a certain team, have you found that there's like taker bots that just will go into that market and just hammer it right before retail finds out about the information, maybe because they have, you know, the professional Twitter API and maybe they have some other news sources that other people don't have? Yeah, just any color you could give on that.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's happening, and there are people who are kind of like professionalized on basically betting on sports market and like trying to acquire lower latency API access. And I believe I've heard anecdotally you have to pay 6-digit or like 150K for one of the sports API. So I'm pretty much, yeah, that's one of the things people are gaming, against, like the timing edge, yeah. What else?
Have people thought about the other like mechanisms for handling this kind of last minute settlement MEV thing? Like, I don't know, doing a batch auction at the end instead of a speed bump, or not letting people trade, or things like that? Do you think it's that they haven't thought about it? Do you think the platforms are like making money off the degen so they don't actually want it? What do you think is the...
Yeah. I think like people have been coming up with ideas. Like for example, like how to say obfuscate, like the source of the resolution is one obvious choice. I've heard people having ideas saying like, we should just close the market and like reject, like so it's actually very interesting. So for prediction markets, there's also two types of markets. One is a bonded market where you know exactly when it's going to settle, but there's also a case when you don't know exactly because it may ask like, will the president strike Iran today? Like, sorry, before 2027. So that may happen from any time from now till 2027, right? So it's kind of like unbonded. And I've heard interesting idea where people say like, for that type of markets, you will just like, after the fact, know exactly when it happens and just reject all the orders before that for like 5 minutes or 1 hour or so. So yes, things are happening, but it seems like Polymarket as one of the venue who has most of the problem is just pretty slow in terms of rolling out product features. So not really seeing actual shift on the market design yet is what I see, yeah.
Cool, thanks.
Yeah. Another interesting point I think you may find interesting is like, I think like the current, everybody would probably agree is that the current dispute process, like the Oracle design is pretty broken. So for example, like UMA protocol, which is used by Polymarket, it only requires $750 to collateral for you to raise the dispute. So imagine you have a bigger position to profit than that, and you can do a lot of things there. And historically, I believe a lot of markets has been manipulated as well on disputes, yeah.
Did you study any of the specific market resolution failures in either case, or did that fall within your data window to see whether maybe the pricing inefficiency between Polymarket and Kalshi might somewhat be caused by the different resolution mechanisms or lack of trust in resolution?
Yeah, that's a good question. I feel like the resolution case, it happens quite a lot, but I don't know if people are having like a statistical model to price that into the like the pricing prediction. We do have like some discussion with one of the researchers at Yale to like maybe formalize like the study on like what's the problem with Oracle design. But I don't think anyone has like really formalized the like how to say predicting the statistical facts of it. Yeah.
Thank you. Great presentation. So you mentioned about bots and retail traders who are part of active users on Polymarket and Kalshi. I'm quite interested in the actual retail traders and Superforecasters. What's your take, and would you agree that in order for prediction markets to succeed in the future, they should have easy ways and accessible ways for the Superforecasters and insiders essentially enter the markets and trade and exchange their knowledge for possible profits?
Right. One thing to clarify, did you say want the insider to also enter the market? Or you mean, I guess you referred to them more as in like someone who's more informed. Right.
Yes, Superforecasters and I guess insiders are part of them, right?
Yeah, I believe so. I think like one thing to make it clear is that like insider trading is probably like legally prohibited, because if you are someone like a Nancy Pelosi and you know the policy gonna adjust like the stock market price, then you're not supposed to trade on the market. And I believe like Kalshi has been heavily trying to like basically kind of like operated by their own team, trying to like identify the pattern of insider trading and trying to prohibit it. But on the other hand, for Superforecasters and like basically people who are like smaller market maker or like smaller parties who have knowledge who wants to participate in the market, I think you want to design the product features the best for them. So like for example, Polymarket's order cancellation takes 10 seconds or more than that for you to even know if your order is canceled, and that's just not ideal for someone who wants to market make. So I think like just designing the toolkits to have better latency and better like endpoints is basically the lowest hanging fruit to do. Yeah.
Thank you.
Let's thank Danning.
All right. Thank you.